Hi, I'm John Byrne with Poets&Quants. Welcome to the University of Houston. We're here at the CP Bauer College of Business. We're going to go in and talk to Jamie Belinne, who's the Associate Dean of Career and Industry Engagement. We're going to talk to her about experiential learning and the role it plays in getting great student outcomes for their graduates. Join me. So Jamie, tell me why you do what you do.
I love being at that place in people's lives where they're moving from one place to another, from a place of, maybe I'm not quite happy or I'm not sure what's next, to this area of passion where it's like I'm making a difference in the world, I see a future for myself, and we get to be at that transition point and watch it all happen. I love it.
And you're making a real difference because so many of the students are first-gen students that don't have professional role models. They're coming from very diverse and often disadvantaged backgrounds.
Yes. About 2/3 of our students are on financial aid. More than half are the first in their families to go to college. Many are first-generation U.S. citizens. And so they really are living the dream for their families and for themselves. And being able to be part of that process where we're providing the access and the mentoring and the role models to help them transition is so rewarding.
So how do you prepare them for a world that's very different from the world that they knew?
As much as possible, we try to give them access to that world in small doses and in safe places. And so we'll do it in the classroom where we provide coaching and projects and mentoring through class projects and through case competitions where they're working in a safe, guided environment to actually build those relationships and experience part of the corporate world in a way that's not as intimidating, not as frightening. And for a lot of our students, they may have never owned a suit before. Just yesterday, we had a case competition, and I think I tied 20-something ties yesterday and taught people through how to tie a tie. And we'll provide a suit for them if we need to. But having that opportunity to go out there and do it and realize, wow, this isn't as hard as I thought it would be, and I'm kind of good at this, changes lives. We get to transform lives.
Now, a core part of this is practice, right? And in practice, a key leveler is experiential learning. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about how important that is to students at the school.
One of the great things about being in Houston is we have so much access to so many companies. And so all of our signature programs are based in experiential learning, whether it's the mentors working with all of our entrepreneurs, it's the companies working with our sales students as they actually close deals. It could be our students in our SURE program that are working with banks and local entrepreneurs and underserved communities in the Houston area to help those people start their own businesses. All of those are opportunities for students to experience what they would do in future careers in a safe and controlled environment. And we try to make sure, we do make sure that every single student at Bauer is able to have some form of experiential learning before they graduate. Because if all you do is sit in the classroom and then you never actually get to see those skills used in the real world, then how are we really going to transform your thinking so that you can be a successful business leader?
And given the growth of Texas in the economy, I understand that you have well over 20 Fortune 500 companies headquartered in Houston today.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yes.
So you have a very big playground of corporate giants to tap into for these projects. Mm-hmm. Give me a sense of the range of things that students are doing in these learning projects.
So it could be anything from coming up with a strategic plan for how are we going to roll out the merger of our major company so that we can blend the cultures of our two existing companies into one culture.
Wow,
at the graduate level. Yeah, that's at the graduate level. It's a 2-semester course, and we could do that down to a sophomore level course of our company is trying to build a stronger brand with Gen Z. How do we do that? And those kids go out and they survey 200 of their friends to find out what's working, what's not, and come back and put on their suits and make a presentation on here's what you need to do. And those little projects can be as impactful as those giant projects.
I bet. Now, you're known for having a great program in entrepreneurship.
Yes.
A great program in sales.
Yes.
So what kind of experiential learning occurs in those two fields?
So our entrepreneurship students actually work with real patented technologies to figure out how do we create a market for these, how do we build a business around them, how do we monetize these initiatives. And they go out and they help raise money and build the business plan and actually launch several businesses. They also work with small businesses and small business owners to better understand the process through very close mentoring. So they spend a lot of time actually out in the world working with entrepreneurs and experiencing what it's like to start a business before they graduate.
And some of that is in a disadvantaged area of Houston, right?
Yes, very much so. More so, our SURE program, the program that looks at stimulating urban renewal through entrepreneurship, SURE, works primarily in the Third Ward, which is one of the poorest neighborhoods in the country. But they work with other underrepresented populations as well, where we have people that may want to start a business, but they don't have the financial resources, the personal networks, or maybe even the educational resources to be able to launch a business. And the students work with these entrepreneurs to help them build a business plan, help them pitch for funding, and often continue to stay friends with them and mentor them after the students have left the class so that they can continue to help these entrepreneurs. That program has launched hundreds of successful small businesses and really transformed some underrepresented areas in the Houston area.
Wow. And what about in sales?
The sales program, our students actually sell stuff. From the time they are admitted, every semester they have sales quotas for different products.
Is that right?
Yes, whether it's the career fair that they're selling or golf foursomes. We have one of the most profitable golf tournaments in the city. They are selling key accounts to do sponsorships for the program. So by the time they graduate, they know what it's like to meet a sales quota or exceed it, and they've closed tens of thousands of dollars of deals before they ever leave school.
That's remarkable. I think I told you earlier that I had bumped into 3 of your sales students who were incredibly passionate and very well versed in knowing what the mission of the school is, how it teaches, that sales is all about building relationships and not necessarily selling something to someone that they may not need. Very impressive group.
Yes. And we believe so much in sales that we make sure that every one of our undergraduate students takes an introductory sales class as part of their core curriculum.
Personal branding.
Yes, because you can't do any field in business if you can't sell.
Yeah. And before you can sell something, you have to sell yourself.
Absolutely.
So the personal branding course, every single student now has to take that?
Yes.
What does it entail?
Well, the Intro to Selling course they all take, but it's a basic overview of the sales process, and they actually get to do some role plays to experience selling, because I think a lot of times selling gets a bad rap. People do get that image of somebody trying to convince you to do something you don't want to do, as opposed to helping people solve real problems with products.
Right.
And so a lot of this helping them better understand selling and the positive side to it and how it's a beneficial thing and how they may have skills they didn't realize they had and they may enjoy it more than they thought they would.
And it's, a skill that's required in everything we do for,
Absolutely.
So it does translate.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. Now, what are the range of companies that have basically given projects to the students?
Wow. I think in my course alone, we've had more than 300 companies do projects over the years. And it's everything from nonprofits to Fortune 20 companies, whether it's oil and gas, technology, healthcare, anything. I don't think there's an industry we haven't touched.
That's remarkable.
Yeah.
Now, what happens in a project? In other words, obviously, a student team is given a challenge of one kind or another. They go out and study this challenge, perhaps under the mentorship of some company or organizational executives, and then they have to present, right?
Yep.
So what kind of supervision do they get in the project itself to make sure that they deliver the goods?
So it depends. At the graduate level, because those are more in-depth, meaningful projects, the faculty are very involved and they're able to lend their expertise and supervision to the projects. At the undergraduate level, if it's an upper level class, the faculty are still very involved and adding their expertise and insight. At the lower levels, the freshman, sophomore, we may lean more on the companies to provide some of that supervision
Sure.
with partnership with the faculty. And we also bring in volunteer coaches. So we have a whole lot of wonderful corporate volunteers in the Houston community that are willing to serve as a sounding board and a resource to teams of students to help them think through projects. Because when you're a freshman or a sophomore and you've never done anything like this before, just having somebody to help you question your thinking and really look at, well, is TikTok a good resource for your research? To help you think differently about the problems is useful. And it also takes some of the fear out for them, because that first project is pretty scary. And so we try to have mentors and coaches available to help them not be so terrified of it all.
So a project gives someone self-confidence. What else does it give them?
Yes. Self-confidence, communication skills, interpersonal skills, problem-solving skills, critical thinking, all of those basic skills that we keep hearing companies desperately need, but they're difficult to teach from a textbook.
Right.
And so the more you're able to put people with a team of people that you don't already know and give them a problem you don't already know the answer to and say, now you have to reach consensus, dig deep in this, make a recommendation, and then stand behind that recommendation, is probably the best preparation for reality you could give anyone.
Yeah, that's really true. And of course, it leads to other opportunities for students. In an interview with a potential employer, you can talk about your project.
Yes.
And highlight the things that you learned in it. Oftentimes they could lead to an internship or a full-time job offer.
Yes.
Which brings us to outcomes.
Yes.
Tell us about your student outcomes.
They've been really good. And I have to just brag for a second. When I got here many years ago, we really weren't very focused on placement. We did a great job with education, but placement wasn't a focus. And so our placement rates reflected that. But now our rates are consistently in the 90-something% every year. And I do think experiential learning is a large part of that, because so many times our sponsors hire the people on the projects, whether it be for internships or for full-time jobs. And it's not just the sponsors for the projects. Our coaches, our mentors, they get attached to students. They fall in love with them, and they want to have them on their teams too. We did a case competition yesterday. 900 students were involved. We had 60 judges, and the judges said, we want them all to bring resumes because we want to stay in touch with these people.
Wow.
We're like, great, we would love to do that.
Just the size of that is astounding in and of itself. I mean, 900 students.
Yes.
All doing case competitions.
On one day.
It kind of blows your mind. I mean, really.
Yeah, it's so exciting.
That's amazing. That was for undergraduates?
That was for undergraduates. Yeah. But we also did a great big crisis competition for graduate students in August that was everybody at once. And we had senior executives. We had about 20 different senior executives that were all on boards of directors for major corporations that served as a mock board of directors that were challenging the students and giving them feedback and questioning them. And so our MBAs got to have this high-level experience with board members, and communication coaches and members of the media participated, so they got to experience a real problem as a leader and get that personalized feedback from people that have been there. It's a great opportunity.
For sure. What do the stats look like in terms of, besides placement, salary levels, and where most students are going?
You know, we used to be a very energy-focused company, but now it's getting to be very spread out across a lot of different industries, and some of that may be changes going on in the Houston economy. But our placement rates are consistently in the mid-90%, depending on kind of, it gets even higher, like our accounting students, you can never have enough accounting students.
Yes,
we're hitting 100 every year on that one.
Yeah.
But it's coming out in the mid-90s across our degree programs.
Yeah.
Our salary increases, we don't have final numbers yet, but preliminary this year, we have seen about a 13% increase in salaries over last year for our MBA students.
Wow.
And about a 10% increase over last year for our BBA students. So far outpacing even pretty rotten inflation, the salaries are continuing to go up rapidly for our students as well.
What do you attribute that to?
Some of it is the Houston economy is doing great. Some of it is, I think the word is out about the quality of our students. For a while, we were this hidden gem in Houston that we brought them in from Houston, we placed them in Houston, and we didn't get out much. But now we've got people going all over the country. We've got recruiters from all over the country, all over the world. And so people are recognizing us as an important force to be reckoned with.
What do you think employers most appreciate about your students?
People love our diversity because we got that. And our students love our diversity too. It's why a lot of people love being here. I love the diversity. So that's a big one. But the quality is also amazing. We are very selective for our students. It's not easy to get in. And our faculty are amazing. We have faculty that have, some of the research they're doing is just amazing. We have them writing, popular books that other people are reading. They're doing work that's changing the world in all industries. And this experiential learning, that they can really get their hands dirty while they're in the program, not just have a theoretical experience, but actually do something.
I'm sure you've had many students over the years who you really resonated with personally. And I wonder if you could bring one of their stories to life for me.
There's so many. When you get back to transforming lives, which again, it's what I think education exists to do, it's what we do. I had a student years ago, he actually worked in our office. And before, he was a non-traditional student, and before he came back to school, he was literally living under a bridge in a tent. And he was working nights as a dishwasher at a 24-hour breakfast place and trying to save up his money, and he managed to get financial aid and came to college, and he took full advantage of it. Like I said, he worked for us, and he was very involved in student organizations, very involved in experiential learning. And when he graduated as an undergraduate, he got an offer with a consulting firm in Dallas making in the 70s,
Wow.
which he'd never imagined that kind of money.
Yeah.
And I remember he came into my office and he said, I don't know anything about benefits. What's an HMO? What's a PPO? Why do I care about this? He said, I've never even seen this before.
Yeah, I still don't know what they are.
Yeah, I know, right? But to see that kind of impact on a
No, that's
person's
amazing.
life that's so permanent, it's just truly, not many people get to say that about their work.
No, that's really true. And it's, transforming life, you're allowing them to have social mobility,
Yes.
which is, what the American dream is supposed to be all about.
Oh, John, our MBAs, they saw on average this year close to 69% increase in salary from the time they came to us till the time they graduated. And people talk about giving up 2 years of your earnings potential to go back and get a full-time MBA. You don't have a 69% increase earnings potential when you stay in your job for two
No
more
way.
years.
Yeah, there's just no way.
That kind of transformation happens through education, and we're lucky to be part of that here.
That's true. Well, what's the most challenging part of your job, do you think?
I think because so many of our students are non-traditional, they are having to work sometimes multiple jobs, commute long distances, and try to balance school with that. And I'm talking at the undergraduate and the graduate level.
Sure.
They're struggling to make ends meet to make this dream happen. And it's hard because recruiters are saying, we want diversity and we want these people with all these backgrounds, but we expect them to be active in the student organizations. We expect them to be on campus for the recruiting events. We expect them to have a 4.0 GPA. And I keep saying, that's a big ask, because I've got some amazing, talented people that to do all the things that are necessary to take full advantage of the higher education experience is hard. And it's another reason we embedded experiential learning into the curriculum, because there were people that wanted to do an internship, but they couldn't afford to leave their full-time job in order to do it. Yeah. And the full-time job was great, it showed responsibility, but it wasn't going to compete with someone that had an internship in the field when it came down for that final offer. But if I can give them a class project in that industry that they can talk about, then they've got a fighting chance to really change their lives when they take that full-time job when they graduate.
Yeah, that's really true. What role do your faculty play in preparing people for the real world? Because, I am a first-gen student. I worked part-time at least 20 hours a week throughout my undergraduate years. I had no one in my family who was a white-collar professional, so I totally relate to this. But there were a few faculty members who invested in me in a way that made a very big difference to my life, including one who I actually delivered the eulogy at his funeral, to give you a sense of how closely connected I was. And I wonder, at this school, with your faculty, how close do they get to the students in their stories?
The faculty are part of why I decided to come work here, for exactly what you're describing. And to your point about delivering the eulogy, Dave Cook, who runs our Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship, he got certified as a religious leader so he could perform the marriage ceremony for one of his students.
Really?
Yeah, so he did that. But we have other faculty, really in every single discipline, we have faculty that are so actively involved in their students' lives and helping them succeed. And they're so deep in the trenches with them on making introductions and helping them through the process of getting into internships and getting their full-time offers, helping them evaluate it, helping them kind of deal with how do you balance your life with what's going on. Every single disciplinary track that we have has at least one faculty member that I know I can pick up the phone and say, this student or this employer, and they're going to be 100% on it, making a difference and making a connection.
Yeah. I mean, even to this day, I can remember a faculty member who invited me to his home with some other students. And for the first time in my life, I had a wine and cheese party that I was at in front of a fireplace having intellectual discussions, which kind of blows your mind if you're from a family that's uneducated and you never saw any of that.
Yes. Yes. We have a faculty member here that was always taking students in to live with them over the holidays because he didn't want them to be alone. And you wouldn't expect that. At a big university, you would expect you would have a lot of anonymity as a student. And you can choose to do that. Right. You can always choose to disappear. But it's not because the faculty aren't reaching out. They are. And they do work really hard to get engaged personally with all of our students. And again, it's one of the reasons I chose to work here, because I thought, helping students succeed, it takes a whole college. A placement office can't do it by themselves. That's crazy. But everybody here is engaged in student success, and I love that.
Now, this is a big school. Every year you're graduating about 2,500 people, about 1,900 undergrads a year, and the rest in graduate programs. How do you make it small? How do you make it less so that everyone feels connected and not totally anonymous and a number?
Yeah, I think our specialty programs, kind of like some of the ones you described, and our tracks help a lot because you find your people. And I always tell the students, you just got to find your group, because
like
once you get in it,
business analytics, supply chain,
and even the PES, the sales program, all those little programs,
That's right.
You find a family in that program. And the students in those programs, the honors kids live in their lounge. They never leave because they're hanging out with their people and their friends, and they do everything together. They find those groups, but we work at the undergrad, at the early stages to make that happen. I teach every new pre-business student before they declare a major. I teach 1,300 students a semester.
Wow.
And the first thing I do is I put them in a group of 8, and they work in that group of 8 the entire semester. And it's funny because I always ask them at the beginning of the semester, how many of you, this is the biggest class you've ever been in your life? And all the hands go up. And at the end of the semester, I survey them, and consistently between 80 and 90% say, I made personal friends as a result of being in this giant class, because I have them in a group of 8. You find your people, you work together, you solve problems together, and you find that connection.
And the course you teach is career development, right?
It's connecting Bauer to business. So it's designed by our employers to fill in the gaps between what happens in the classroom and what happens in the real world. So it's kind of the everything else. Anything that they need to know, like we were talking earlier about the critical thinking, the problem solving, the interpersonal stuff, we can teach that, but we immerse them in it very early in that class to say, this is the reality of business. Get used to working with other people, working through problems, working through questions, all of that very early.
All soft skills.
All soft skills.
Soft skills are often hard.
Yes. But honestly, we can give you from the textbook the technical skills to get a job. But it's going to take a lot more than that for you to keep the job and get promoted. And that's where all of those experiential learning opportunities, all of those soft skill trainings kick in. And it doesn't do us any good to get you a first job if we can't help you be successful long term.
So what are the kinds of things you do in that course?
In that class, every single student works with a company either on a project or on a case. Huh? They all are getting feedback from corporate people as sophomores and freshmen that have never done anything at the level, very early. They are all required to participate in a certain number of networking events where they're having to talk to professionals in fields of interest to them, even if it terrifies them, and we coach them through how to do it. I actually will go and be there and do deep breathing with people as necessary. I have, at the career fair, I actually have designated employers who know that they are safe spaces, and there's a code word, almost like a safe word for my students, that if they are about to cry, I say, go to that person right there, walk up. The only thing you have to say, don't even introduce yourself and say your name, just say, Jamie said to come over here. And then that's their cue to take that person under your wing and calm them down and help them feel successful so they can keep talking to employers. But we do it at that level early on to help them know you can succeed and we're not going to let you fail here. You don't have a suit, we'll give you a suit. That's fine. You don't know how to talk to somebody, I'll give you somebody that'll talk to you. We'll make sure you can succeed.
That's remarkable. Wow.
It's fun.
How many hours a week do you work? Does your husband ever see you?
I have an incredibly patient husband who knows.
Clearly, you must.
I love what I do, and it's funny. This is when he proposed to me. He'd come from South Pole. He was a researcher, and I said I'd never want to live anywhere cold. He said, "Fine, as long as we never live in Houston." I said, "Fine, I don't want to live there either." And when they called me here, I said I can't work in Houston, but I can consult. And then I went back home, and my husband said, you are so excited about this university that if you don't go to work there, you're going to spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened. I'm getting weepy. This is crazy. And so he said, yeah, we'll move to Houston. And he was right. It's just been...
And that was 18 years ago?
18 years ago. And it's just been so wonderful to have this kind of impact. Our students, our faculty, I've worked at a lot of universities. There's nothing else like it anywhere out there.
Mm. So you have 3 buildings you're going to build. You're in the process of building the 4th, an entrepreneurial hub. Is that right?
Yes.
What else will you do with that space?
So our Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship will go there. Our SURE program, the Stimulating Urban Renewal for Entrepreneurship, is going to go there, which is also housed in our Center for Economic Inclusion. So some of our signature programs that have a lot of world renown will have a chance to grow and have more impact than they're already having.
That's fabulous. So what trends are you seeing in the workplace that your students are taking advantage of? Clearly healthcare is a big emerging area for business students. In fact, some recent data shows that healthcare has become more important than consumer products for business students.
Yeah, which makes sense with our demographics. Healthcare is doing great, and despite the recent difficulties in technology, I don't think it's turning down. I think it's just transforming.
Yes.
And so I think there's still a lot of opportunity there. I think energy also is transforming, and that's creating a lot of opportunity. And so it's not a matter that the industries are getting smaller, they're just changing the skills that they need for growth and success.
True.
I do think data analytics is going to be at the basis of pretty much every single business field going forward.
Yep.
I think if you don't understand how to analyze and tell stories with data, you're not going to be able to work in business in the future. And I also think with everything happening with artificial intelligence, there's going to be really 2 major skill sets left in the world. The ability to build relationships and sell, which AI cannot yet do well, or the ability to manage the AI by asking good questions and understanding and telling stories with data, which it also can't do well. And so I feel like those 2 things are going to become increasingly important in business schools.
How do you know that your students will not be replaced by an algorithm in the future?
Well, I think some careers will be replaced by algorithms, and they probably should, because frankly, if it can be replaced by an algorithm, you're probably bored in that job.
Exactly.
So I think, again, the critical thinking, the communication, the interpersonal skills, that's going to become more important. And I think those are honestly more interesting for a long-term career, because you get to use your brain and get to work with other people and solve new problems. AI can look back and solve old problems, but if it's brand new and unexplored, it doesn't know what to do, and that's honestly more fun anyway.
Yes, that's true. And AI currently just scrapes the internet.
Yeah.
And so much of what's on the internet is false, actually.
Yeah.
Or misinformed. So to the extent that that occurs, AI may not be the scary thing that many people think it
Yeah.
is. And now it's going to evolve and change and become much better in the future, and your students will be in that world. But you're right. More often than not, the drudge work will go away, and the more interesting dynamic work that's built on people relationships will stay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very true. How do you maintain your enthusiasm after 18 years?
Honey, I've been doing this for 30.
I know, but it's
34.
kind of remarkable.
Every time I think I'm getting too old for this, and I think it often, I will have, yesterday, I had a volunteer judge come up to me and say, your class changed my life. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and your class led me to the major, that led me to the professor that helped me find my career, that led me to where I am now, and thank you. And
A volunteer judge, not a student.
not a student. I honestly hear more from alumni than I do from students, because it's a required course and everybody resents being required to do stuff. But at least once a week, I hear from an alumnus that I helped change their life. And how can you stop then?
No, that's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
It really is.
And I really, and I'm not just saying this because I'm talking about the university, I really don't think I could have done it anywhere but here. That they've had that flexibility and the enthusiasm from the faculty, and everyone is so focused on changing the lives of students that it gives you room to do crazy things like, let's do a case competition with 900 students, why not? It's been fun.
Yeah. How many companies come to recruit your students in a year?
Gosh, that's a great question. We sell out on every recruiting event that we do. We just physically run out of space. If we had a bigger building, we'd fit more. We actively work each year with about 2,000 to 3,000 employers.
Wow.
I have a wonderful team that's very engaged with them. Frankly, there's no shortage of jobs. There's no shortage of jobs. We just need to make sure we get the right students with the right jobs.
So 5 years ago, when you had this job, how many people were on your team, and then how many people are on it now?
I haven't had much change in the past 5 years, but I've got to say, when I arrived here in 2005, we had an Excel spreadsheet with 300 companies on it, and that was our campus recruiting. And we had a career fair with 60 companies that came once a year, and I had 2 career counselors and 2 contractors. I now have a full-time team of 18. I've got 2 contractors. I've got 12 part-time. We have about 250 companies that come to our recruiting events each semester. We have thousands of companies that we're doing on-campus and campus and off-campus recruiting with. And we've got all of this experiential learning, and
That's phenomenal.
This building we got this building 8 years ago. We didn't even have a place to do recruiting before, so it's just been a heck of a lot of fun.
Wow. And, on the way to this building, I met a 3M person who's here.
Yes. They do experiential learning and recruiting with us.
That's right. Amazing. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
You've made a big difference here.
It's been fun.
You really have.
I've been very lucky, and I've got a great team.